feel like everybody's right and everybody's wrong.
100%. Why is this important? Why are we even going here? He's helped a lot of guys. He's also not had success with a lot of guys.
Come in with a purpose, and they're very intentional with what they do and how they do it.
From the majors to the sandlot, baseball and softball share space in one place. Welcome to the farm system.
Fellas, welcome to the podcast. Oh, and the ladies, especially these ladies here now with us today. We have a whole interesting podcast. We haven't done this. You girls, I'm going to flop through you guys real quick. Look, we got the ladies with us today. We're going to dive into, we have Aleena here and also Paige. I'm going to have them go into their backstories and stuff as well, but, really going to highlight some softball here and some really good programs around the country, and also a unique time of year with all the recruiting and things like that as well. But first, we'll start. We got to go with the elders first. Sorry, Aleena, you got to wait. So first, Paige, why don't you kind of tell everybody who you are and kind of, your backstory and what you do now.
Yeah, so I'm Paige Sinicki. I'm going to be an incoming sophomore at University of Oregon. I play shortstop, kind of utility, kind of anywhere, but mostly shortstop. I played for Corona Angels just like Aleena and with Coach Marty Tyson, and now I'm at Oregon, which I love. So yeah.
Awesome. All right, you're up, superstar.
I'm Aleena Garcia. I'm a 2024 middle infielder and from Southern California. I started playing baseball from 3 to 10 years old, and I did not want to play softball no matter what. And then my dad kind of forced me. And ever since then, I've loved it, and now I play for Corona Angels.
Love it. So kind of like, some big pieces here as well. Like obviously you guys talked about, you guys both played for Marty, but also at this time of the year, there's a lot going on, obviously, with a lot of recruiting. I know that, both of you have gone through this process. One, obviously, Aleena, with you currently doing it right now. And then Paige, also, you've gone through this process as well this time of the year. Pretty exciting. So why don't we just first just kind of open up. Aleena, why don't you start just kind of talk about what this process has been like for you? I know it's all unique, and the first time, obviously, you've gone through something, like this. And then why don't you kind of just open that up and what that process has been like?
So this process, it was like unimaginable. It's unreal. It's a lot different than I expected. Right at midnight, got my first call, and right from that moment, I kept getting more calls and more calls. I got about 10, and now I'm just keep doing calls and getting more interest and lists of schools I want to go to.
Love that. Yeah, and why don't you kind of open up, just open up too about what it's been like, because I know a lot of those schools and stuff that you've gotten calls from are schools that you've aspired to play for, right? And so what does that really felt like to obviously, getting those calls at, midnight, getting those, multiple people reaching out and kind of acknowledging obviously all the work that you've done over the years, what does that felt like?
Yeah, so I'm so thankful and blessed to get all these calls, because everything I've been working towards, it's like finally falling into place. And I have my ultimate goal of being an Olympian in the future. So it's just one goal down and just working on more to go.
Love that. And then, Paige, why don't you kind of just open up too as well? Obviously, you've gone through that process as well. Want to talk about what that was like for you, and then I have a follow-up question after that too.
All right. So I mean, it's a lot different back then now. Recruiting was a lot different back then. We didn't really have September 1st. We did, but I committed when I was a freshman in high school. So when I was in 6th grade, I was playing softball in Vegas from 3 to 6th grade. And the level of softball wasn't super high, and I knew I needed to get more competitive with where I was playing. So I decided to join the Corona Angels and do a bunch of camps in California. And that's when I was becoming to get noticed by all these colleges. And that's when I joined Coach Marty Tyson, who had a huge impact on the calls with all my coaches. So I remember when I was in about 7th grade, I got a bunch of calls, just kind of light ones, smaller schools. And then it started to progressively get larger schools where I was going on visits and unofficial visits. And then my 8th grade year, I was doing these visits. And then when I was a freshman, I remember taking all my visits on crutches. Actually, I had torn my ACL.
Wow.
So I remember going to these colleges are they even going to want me anymore?
Wow.
I was on crutches going through the Oregon campus, UCLA campus on these crutches. But so I ended up committing to University of Oregon my freshman year as of January. So it was basically a lot different than what Aleena had gone through, but it's something that has changed, and I think the rule now has been a lot better because of it. So
Love that. Yeah, and then also, along with that, now that you've gone through that process and are actually like out of school as well, what would you say, like, what advice do you have for players that are kind of going through that process right now? And then I also have a follow-up question for both of you after that as well. But yeah, what advice would you have for people that are going through that process right now, or give Aleena advice now?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people get nervous about September 1st, but it's like everybody's process is so different. Like your story is going to be so different from everybody else, and I think like you shouldn't get discouraged about not getting that phone call that you wanted, and you really just got to stick with like what you want with your gut and your heart, and like think about what things you want in your life and your upcoming future that are going to affect those things. So like even just like the coaches can be an idea, like the school, the area you're living in. Like it's going to be about softball, but it's also about like what you want to do with your afterlife too. So I think you got to think about all of it, but I mean, like, don't feel discouraged ever, and just keep like what your heart wants and what you want to do. And I think that's like the best thing you can do for it.
Love it. Yeah, no, and the question I was going to have for both of you guys is, because I saw this on Twitter today, is someone posted and they're like, they got no calls yesterday, right? And, along with that, that's also a process, kind of like you had touched on right there. You kind of walked into the spider web I was going into, is there's a lot of players that didn't get, a call yesterday as well. And, obviously with that process too, you guys have gone through, again, there's no way you guys get to the level you guys are at now without having some disappointments along the way and some things that didn't go your way, and those things as well. So, Aleena, why don't we kind of start kind of with you? Like, if someone, the same thing too, is going through the same process you are and they haven't got any calls today, what do you think, or yesterday, what do you think, what advice would you give those players?
I would say don't let that tear you down, because that's not a call from a college doesn't determine your worth, and you never know. Keep working hard.
Amen.
Keep doing you. Keep doing you. Keep working hard, and they'll come. They'll come along the way. You'll end up where you're meant to end up.
Love it. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think same thing as she was saying, like, it's going to come, and, like, you got to just keep putting the hard work in and figuring out what, like, things going to make you stick out more at these tournaments and these games. Like, what can I do differently now to get these coaches to get my attention? So I think just, like, figuring out what next step you have to do and just keep calm and, like, keep doing you kind of thing. Like, you don't got to stress too much, because at the end of the day, it's going to come, and you're going to love wherever you go, because that's, like, the destiny of it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and the same thing I was going to say is, I played Division I. I got 0 calls from a Division I almost ever, basically, until and even too, when that ended up happening, I went to the junior college route. Obviously, a little bit different than softball. You don't see it as much compared to baseball, where players go to a junior college first and then transfer in. Now, again, the same thing too. It's like I went the junior college route. I needed to develop. I was 17. For about a month and a half when I was in college, which is a lot different as well. A lot of players that I was going up, I know people that were 19 as a freshman, right? And then also in junior college, like if you never, like let's say you graduated high school, but you don't go straight into college, like your clock never starts. So because of that, like there is people that are in junior college that might be like 24, 25, and they're a freshman. Right. And that's something interesting to know that you have to compete against, is someone that is that much more mature, especially when I was 17 years old. Right. And then so I think that's an interesting kind of dynamic as well with that. But again, another word of encouragement from, my side is the same thing. Like I wasn't a Division I baseball player out of high school. Like I wasn't that good. And I had to develop, and I had to get a lot stronger, and I had to, develop my game, and I needed to get my arm a lot stronger, and I had to get a lot of those things and really get some experience, and I needed to mature a little bit in some of those things as well, and ended up becoming a Division I baseball player. And even then, it wasn't the route that I thought it was going to go. I didn't know who, University or UAPB was, or University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. It was HBCU. It wasn't, it wasn't like I had this list and it was like, it wasn't a, LSU, or it wasn't, an Oregon, or it wasn't a UCLA, or it wasn't, any of those things. And so I think it's a process with that is same thing as like not getting, identifying yourself obviously with, whatever that is, whatever school it is, or those things. And also I think it's interesting now too with, there's transfer portals and all those things as well. So again, you might have, had eyes to want to go to Oregon, or wanted to go to UCLA, or wanted to go to Texas A&M, or wanted to go to, Oklahoma, or whatever that was. And sometimes, again, some of these people might have gotten a mid-major call or something like that. And, there is opportunities now that it's a little bit different for players across. But one you guys talk about too, I know over the years, especially like both of you, now with you in college as well, there has been, you guys travel a lot. You guys get to go and experience a lot of things. Why don't we start? Too, Aleena, I'll kind of have you start first. What has been your favorite place to travel to so far?
My favorite place I've traveled to is probably Colorado.
Okay.
I don't know what it is. The weather hasn't been as bad as the other places. The
Interesting.
people have been really welcoming there. They've been nice. So I don't know. It just helped and the environment. But my favorite trip for softball was definitely Oklahoma. They didn't have much to do out there, but just the way we did, how we played, we got to the championship. We took second, but just the road to get there, it was a really good experience.
Cool. Same question for you.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma would be the best place for experience wise.
Cool.
You're going to USA, National Field. That's where the World Series played at. Just my experiences in Oklahoma, junior national trials, just a bunch of things I remember deeply from Oklahoma.
Yeah. This is not an ad for Oklahoma, by the way. Anyways, go ahead. Go ahead, proceed.
That's funny. No, but I mean, yeah, Oklahoma. But yeah, when we went to Oregon, oh my gosh, I can't even think of the state now. It was definitely on the East Coast. It was, where's UNC at? North Carolina.
North
That's
Carolina.
where
Yeah.
we went to North Carolina. That was probably a cool state just because I'd never been to North Carolina before. So I think just going there with my team and softball was definitely a fun experience and fun trip for us. So
funny. Awesome. And then obviously my favorite part when we were traveling a bunch is that's also too when the funniest stories and things happen, over with your teammates and things like that happen. It was always on the road. They always say again, at one point, you guys haven't got to this point yet, but at some point, old guys like me, you stop playing and when you look back, the games are fun, the wins and all those things are amazing, but all the things you really remember is all the times you spent with your teammates and all those trips. And sometimes I had to remind myself during those trips, but also a reminder for you guys is actually being present, being where your shoes are, and in those moments, it's I know as an athlete, and you guys are both like that too. Is just accomplishers, right? You keep accomplishing these things, and I want a national title, and I want to get signed, and I want to, and all these things, I want to be an Olympian, right? And then sometimes you get lost of the journey along the way, right? And kind of the destination is the disease, journey is the reward thing. But there's a lot of fun things that happen during those trips. I'm gonna give you guys some freedom to share some stories. Paige is already there. She's already starting to think.
I think.
Why don't you gotta dive into your funniest story or one of your funnest times that you had when you were traveling?
I think back to North Carolina. That's probably why I loved it so much.
That makes sense.
We were going to practice before our games that week, and so we were in our bus, our normal big bus that we're always in, and we're going to practice. We're probably 3 minutes away. And I mean, most of our bus drivers are pretty old, which isn't nothing bad about it, but they're just these old guys. And I remember we're about to go in this tunnel, and it said maximum 9 feet. And so he looks and he brakes on the he puts the brakes, slams the brakes on, and we're all what's going on? And then he looks back and tells our coaches, he's I don't think I'm gonna fit through this tunnel. I don't know how I'm gonna get to the field, kind of thing. And then so it's this very narrow road. I kid you not, we're there for an hour trying to figure out how we're gonna turn this bus around to go a different route. And this bus wouldn't even churn. It was we had to call the cops, and they had to get a little escort out just for us to go to practice that evening. Yeah, so it was, and we're all just in the bus laughing, having a good time. And all the coaches are really stressed, the bus driver's stressed, and all of us are just laughing oh, practice a little later now. It was just funny. Yeah, that's funny. That was a fun trip.
Aleena, same question.
All right, mine was in Oklahoma. So the championship game, it's a best of 3 series. So after our first game, the 18s would play. So we went back in the clubhouse, and we were making up cheers. We were keeping ourselves energetic, and we were being really loud playing games. And then we turned around, and our coach was sleeping. He was sleeping in there. We were man, are we not entertaining enough, or what? We thought we were loud. So then we were all taking pictures of him. We have him to this day. And classic. Then right after, we got right back into our next game.
That's funny. That's good. Yeah, and then as you guys obviously both mentioned earlier, obviously you guys both played for a pretty historic organization, especially too as you're coming up in club ball. I remember Aleena, I remember I've known you since way before, that as well. Why don't you guys kind of both kind of open it up? Because again, that, Marty's done a pretty good job. And also too, I again, talked to a lot of coaches around the nation, and obviously a lot of people recruit from that organization, and a lot of the skills, a lot of them say a lot of the same things about a lot of skills that a lot of players have when they leave his program. So why don't you guys kind of just touch on that? I'll start with you, Paige, since you were kind of done there and she's still kind of in it, but we'll start with you and then we'll.
Yeah, Marty's my softball dad. Like, I mean, everybody kind of says he's a softball dad, but yeah, he gives us these skills as athletes and always is continuing to grow us as athletes. But I think, like, I'm sure Aleena can agree that, like, he wants us to grow as people and women, and I think that's like something he really emphasizes, and I think that's what makes us like a different program compared to everybody else's. Like, he's growing us as athletes, but also players and women, and I think that's something that's just so different about him, and like, he truly cares about everything you do and like wants to make sure like everything in life is going on. Like, I remember like he gave us almost like every one of his athletes a call right when like a lot of things with mental health was going on this past year with colleges, and I just remember he gave us a call and was like, hey, like, are you doing okay? Like, I'm here for you, like, if you need to talk. So I mean, like, that just goes a long way. And so like,
good for him.
I think that's just like the skills that he wants to like pass down to us, and I think that's like something super cool about him. But yeah, like, obviously the athletic skills, like, we all have our athletic skills, but like, he just always is pushing us to get better, and like, you're never settling with him. Like, there's always something that you can get better at, and I think like he really shows that. And like, I don't know, he's just a fun time. He's a funny guy, always got tricks up his sleeves, chicken bones everywhere, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, no, I love the Kona Angels and his family and Coach Marty Tyson, so yeah.
That's funny.
I recently, like 2 years ago, that's when I started with the Angels, and Marty has definitely never lets you settle. Like, you think you do something good, and his compliment is decent. Like,
I know that one.
you
I know
can't
that
get
as
a
a coach. I know what
compliment
that's
out
like.
of Coach Marty. Like,
Yeah.
he just always wants you to get better and grow. And another thing that he's really helped me with is helping me be comfortable being uncomfortable, because I'm not a really loud person, but Marty's definitely gotten things out of me. And even in practices, like, if you make a great play, he wants you to show your energy, and he just gets, like, he gets the best out of you.
I like it. Yeah. No, that's cool. No, it's always cool. I mean, like I said, I can still remember coaches, and every coach I had, gave me bits and pieces and like made me into the player that I was, and definitely super grateful for them as well. And kind of obviously with that, Paige, like you did obviously land with Oregon as well. And again, I've had the opportunity to talk with Sam, one of your coaches, and we got to build a relationship now over the last year or so. And so wanted to give you also an opportunity to talk about like your experience over at Oregon. And I know that like I've never seen you not in Oregon gear. Actually, to be fair, I think the one day you wore a farm shirt, but then Oregon shorts. And then maybe that other day I might have been all no Oregon. That's because I told you not to wear Oregon stuff. But other than that, I think that, so why don't you kind of talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, my wardrobe's kind of all Oregon gear now. Like, can't blame me though.
Yeah, I get it.
But no, yeah, I mean, I was new as a freshman, and so was most of the coaching staff except for Coach Lombardi. So, I mean, Coach Sam Martyr, Coach Reagan, like Coach List, like they were all brand new. So we were kind of figuring out all together. Like, we were talking very open, and so I think that was really cool. Is like they got to know us a lot before even like starting season, and I think Coach Martyr, it was a grind this season. Like, granted, I did decent, but like at the end of the season, we sat down, like me and her definitely like getting coffee, and we talked, and I was like, all right, like, what's the next step? Like, I want to get these goals. Like, let's figure out what I can do. And that's when she mentioned you, and you obviously lived in Vegas, which was like a perfect fit for me. So I was like, yeah, like, let me do it. Like, let me do this evaluation. And so Coach Martyr definitely wanted me to grow as an athlete. And I'm like very thankful, like, that she always wanted me to continue to grow, and she had these connections. So like, me and Coach Martyr's relationship is something special. And I'm very happy that I get to work with you and Coach Martyr, who are like just such knowledgeable people with the game, like taught me a lot more about my body and body awareness of how I move versus how I've been taught like prior. And then Coach Reagan was a former alum at Kona Angels too. So she brought that little Coach Marty back in the game for me too. So like, her being a shortstop and played with Coach Marty, like I saw a lot of similarities that were in her with Coach Marty. So I definitely felt very comfortable as a freshman. I felt like I had people that were very supportive and like going to be good people for me to be around. And then of course Coach Lombardi is like the head of the honcho. So she she's just like a mom to me too. Like, she wants to get things done, and I like just very grateful for all my coaches, and I love Oregon and very, very excited for the season with them.
Love it. Yeah, no. And then, Aleena, I wanted to kind of circle back with that is obviously you haven't picked a school that you want to go to yet. And I kind of want you to kind of open up as well. I think there's a lot of players that are maybe like shaping their ideas of what schools they want to go to and why. And I think you've gotten to go deeper on that because you do have some options and some things that you've gotten to think through. So for you, what are things that have been important, for you, and like what were you looking for like out of schools?
So me looking into schools, obviously I want a good education out of it because I can't play softball for the rest of my life. So I want to get a good education. I want great coaches that push me and that will get me better as I'm there because I want to keep improving. And for after college, I still want to play softball. So to get me to that step I want to get to and keep pushing me. And more, I've been looking for a organization, a program that wants to win a national title because I want to win. Who doesn't want to win?
Yeah.
So I want to be part of that environment.
Yeah, no, I thought that was pretty cool. Also, me and your dad were talking the other day, and I thought this was a cool thing, so I kind of wanted you to share your perspective on this. Is obviously, and this is kind of for both of you guys here, but specifically, again, Aleena, you've gotten to go to a pretty good amount of camps, and also too, like you've got to be around a lot of really good players, really throughout your whole time, and obviously playing with. The Angels, you guys have also around some really good players as well. But specifically, like some of these schools are recruiting, some other really good players at your same position, right? And again, I'm sure it was the same when you were getting recruited. But along with that, and some are really talented and maybe be just as good or maybe even better or maybe just a step behind you and could catch them that way. What is your guys' kind of your dad was kind of sharing with me your perspective on that with like other players being really good at your same position. What has been your thought process kind of behind that as you've been getting recruited?
So when I go to camps, of course, everybody there is interested in going to that school. So I need to find my way to stand out. So how I do it, I want to hustle. I want to be the first one out, first one doing everything. And I want to beat them in everything I do, be coachable. Anything they teach me, I do. And I just want to stand out by doing everything one step ahead of them. And yeah, just like that.
Yeah. And then Paige, what was your kind of mindset when you're getting recruited and there's other players that are, again, and the school might be recruiting, some of those players, that are just as good or, with that as well. What was kind of your mindset throughout that process?
Yeah, I think for me, like kind of same thing, like you want to stick out. And like my way of sticking out was going like 110%, like with every play, like they kind of look at me like, oh yeah, she'd run through a wall for you kind of thing. And I think that's what made me stick out a little bit more compared to the other athletes. But yeah, I think it's just finding what makes you stick out more and kind of just going with that. And I think also just the energy part of it was like my way of doing it too. And also like listening to the coaches at the camp and being able to make the adjustments that they want. Like, oh yeah, she can adjust fast. Like that's what we want. Like, and not just keep doing the same thing over and over and failing that way. Like I think at camps you definitely want to stand out. Even like I remember shagging at like an Arizona camp, and I like think I caught Coach Mike Kindra's eye just because I was diving left and right, this way and that way. And I think that was kind of just a way that, oh yeah, she likes to play ball kind of thing. So
yeah, no, love that. One of the things I'll say about both of you guys, one of the things that overlap, with that and having the opportunity to train both of you guys a little bit now is that kind of mindset of both of you guys on top of all the skills you guys have, but both of you guys are both really good teammates. And what I mean by that is like even the fact, I think one of the ways that in the Paige I identify kind of with you in that way as well of like, I played a lot of positions. It was like whatever the team needed at whatever level. Like I grew up most of my life playing catcher, and then like my team needed me to play shortstop, and like my team needed me to pitch, my team needed me to close, my team needed me to start, my team needed me to play third, my team needed me to play second, I needed to play left field, right? My body was changing over time, and well, there's players that were better than me in certain teams at different positions. I think that's been big, and one of the same things too, definitely, Aleena, I've been around you long enough with that as well. One of the things me and your dad were talking about was, one of these when you went to the camp out in there at Texas A&M, they have another really good shortstop that's playing that position. And also too, I know that oftentimes you've said this to me too, and also too when I was talking to your dad, at him saying that you brought that up is like, you're like, good, like I want good. I want like if she gets recruited too, like great, like I want to have good players like on my team. You know, like that again. You want to win a national title. Like there's going to be,
Can't
you know,
just be me.
yeah, it can't just be you, right? And if you're the team that's like, I'm the only good player that you're recruiting, well, that's probably a problem. We're probably not going to win a national title if that's the chance. And, you know, again, most programs, and especially softball programs, a lot of times they're recruiting shortstops and center fielders, and then they're pushing them to other positions, right? Like they recruit for shortstops, and then not everybody's going to be a shortstop, right? Or, you know, one of the things I looked at as well is like, you know, for example, is like, there's certain schools where I'm like, hey, like if they didn't have like a superstar shortstop, like that girl that's playing second base would be playing shortstop. Like she's, you know, good enough to play shortstop. You just happen to be that girl that's playing there is like a, you know, 3-time All-American. Like, you know, she's just legit, you know? So I think that's something, you know, is cool. Like I thought was a really good, you know, mindset you need to have to, you know, be on a championship team. Cause I think sometimes people, we can get stuck in the place, and I think you're probably rooted in a place of just insecurity though. Is that you want to go on a team, and like I remember at certain points, like I wanted to be the man, you know, like I wanted to be the dude on the team. But when you're the dude and you're not that good, then the team's probably not that good, you know. And I wasn't saying I was the most, you know, talented. In certain teams, I was the dude, and other teams, I wasn't the dude, you know. And usually a lot of teams that we were really good, it was like, you know, maybe I might have developed and became the dude over time. But yeah, I think that was pretty cool. Yeah. So then, just also too wanted to kind of go into some of the things that you guys again, especially like Aleena, I know you kind of been a student of a lot of parts of the game, many parts of the game, and then also too I've gotten to experience some of you know, developing your guys' you know, thoughts and mentalities, kind of like when you guys are playing, and also throughout the game. So I kind of wanted to touch on that kind of with both you guys, what that looks like. So when you guys are like locked in and like ideal like mindset, like when you guys are in your spot, when everything's cracking, you guys are rolling, right? And you're on a hot streak. You know, why don't Paige, why don't you kind of just open up where your mind's at, kind of how you're thinking, and like the mentality that you're typically having when you're being successful.
Yeah. When I think of my most like locked in moments throughout my career, I just think about how like relaxed I am. Like I'm just like in such the moment of like really loving the game and competing, and like just like really like taking advantage of those moments, because like when you're locked in, like you're like unstoppable kind of feeling, and like obviously that confidence is gonna keep continuing through that like success. But like I think just having that relaxed and not just super like anxious about things, like I think I can get anxious sometimes when I'm struggling, and so like when I'm locked in, I'm very relaxed and I'm just loving the game and just want to keep doing different things. And I feel like being relaxed and being able to just keep that composure like lets me to expand my horizons with my like level of play. And I think obviously like I'm a very competitive person, so like I'm gonna compete no matter what time it is, whether I'm struggling or being successful. But I think having that calmness and composure while having that high level competition really brings out the best level of play for me personally.
Yeah, what do you think, Aleena?
When I'm locked in, if I'm in the box, I'm like, this pitcher's not beating me. Like, I'm beating you. I don't care who you think you are. I'm getting a hit off of you. If I'm on defense, no ball's getting past me. Like, it's just being that confident player and just knowing that you're going to succeed. And if not, because you fail. Softball's a game of failure. You just got to learn from it and succeed your next shot.
Yeah, I love that. And for, you know, for both of you guys have really great families. Like I've gotten an opportunity, you know, especially Aleena, I've gotten to spend a lot of time. Your family's basically my family. So, you know, again, along with that, I've gotten to spend a lot of time with both you guys there. I think that with both of your guys' mindsets, I feel like your guys' family has kind of fed into some of those things and some of the composure. Paige, you haven't been around when when I'm talking smack about you when you're not around, but one of the things I've talked about, just spending my time with you, is just like people see you on the field, they see those other sides, but like you're a great person, like just like as a person, like very grateful and like all these other things. And I think that feeds into like, you know, your composure and some of these other things of like where your identity is, and not kind of getting lost in, you know, maybe performance and being like, okay, well, I'm 3 for 3 today, so my effort's going to be higher, or, you know, I'm going to be a good teammate right now because I'm hitting, you know, where you're the same day in and day out. You've been in here where, you know, you've crushed it that day, and then, you know, days where it's like, okay, it's just another day. Like I don't know necessarily if we had a day where you've been terrible or anything yet.
Maybe.
It's probably because every time before we start the day, usually I give you the don't suck speech.
Yeah.
You know? But why don't you kind of open that up about where you think kind of like that composure and some of that, you know, mindset stuff might have came from for you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it always goes back to family, but I mean, this year especially, I took a class at Oregon. It was my first class in fall, and it was a CPSY class. It was just a bunch of student athletes, and we talked about athlete identity, and it's something that we get so caught up in life, and it's like, oh, like my identity is just based off of softball.
Yeah.
And like, granted, like I felt like I did a pretty good job of separating those two because I think that's important in my life too.
Yeah.
But like, there's definitely sides where I was like, oh yeah, maybe I am like taking softball a little bit too much of my identity. And so I think that was something really cool I learned in the CPSY class. But for me personally, like my family was like that rock for me. Like growing up, like, I mean, we're just such a really competitive family. Like my mom played college softball. My dad was a swimmer for college too. So like definitely like competitive genes in there. But like, I think for them, it was always like what you commit to, like you need to finish that commitment. It's always like, what you start, you gotta finish kind of thing. And I think just having that mentality of like just continuing to go and not like giving up just when things get hard. And so I think that having that rock and foundation has been something huge for me. And like my dad always told me like there's always someone better than you, so like you gotta work harder to be better than them. And I think that's something like I would always go by growing up. And even like before school, he would say, my mom and dad, before I'd leave for class, they'd be like, be kind. And then I'd say work hard. That was like every day, every morning, that was something we said. And it was just two things that like are big values in my life and in my family's life, being kind and working hard. Like those two things like can take you really far when you just really focus on those two things in life. And I think, I don't know, that's just like, fire. It's just, it's like super simple, but like, man, like I go back to those two values.
Easy, not simple. Or simple, not easy. That opposite way.
So like, I mean, I just go back to those, and I'm very thankful to have just the biggest supporters in my life, even my brother. Like it's just, I just have such a good family to keep me going and to take me to places where I could get these opportunities. Like I can't imagine if my family was like, no, like we can't do this for you. Like they would work their butt off so I could get what I want. Like I want to be an Olympian too. Like I want to do it all. Like let's win this World Series. Let's be an Olympian. Like bring it on, kind of thing. And they're like they're with me. So I just love them. So yeah.
Yeah, and no, and out of respect for obviously some of the losses and things that the softball community had this year, I think you did a great piece there, and you kind of touched on that. And then Aleena, I'm gonna circle back kind of with that for you as well. But you touched on there where you talked about how you're in class and how I think a lot of people talk about that of being like, hey, I need to get my identity outside of softball, but they don't talk about like how and what that process was like to like, start separating that. So for you, how did you go about, not putting your identity inside of softball?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different for like every person, but like I felt like I was already in a pretty good spot. But like I know for me personally, I had to do different things that I liked enjoying myself in my free time. Like I wasn't like, I need to separate, like when softball was done sometimes, like, yeah, I love softball and I like if I was struggling, like it sucks, but like sometimes I would just need to, after practice, go home, like read a book or like listen to a podcast that had really nothing to do with softball, but just like me just relaxing and just like thinking about myself and how I can be better. And like I would write a journal, just things of how I was feeling, and it just let me like kind of decompress all those emotions. And I think that like let me kind of take a step away from softball in a way. And then like when I need to go back to softball, I'm locked in. It's just kind of like be able to lock in with softball and practice and games, and then okay, now I'm home, let me lock into my schoolwork, let me lock into my relationships with my friends. It's being very present. I think that was something, was like mindfulness. Like that was something I learned this year that was huge for me, was being mindful. Like you got to be very present in the moment, because if you try to think too much in the past or too much in the future, you just get really boggled up with all your emotions. So I think mindfulness was probably the best way for me.
Love that. Yeah. And then obviously, Aleena, kind of circling back on that question. So obviously with you as a competitor, know your family, same thing too of, it starts from the same thing too, like I give your brother a hard time all the time about how you're better than him constantly. So you're pushing him in that way, but also too, again, Dad was a pretty good baseball player too as well, and also obviously still really competitive. He's often found inside the facility playing ping pong and whooping somebody, and also too what he does from a coaching standpoint. So why don't you kind of just open that up of where that mentality and a lot of those things started for you?
A lot of my mentality and getting me competitive has honestly came from my little brother, Aaron. He will, no matter how good I do, he'll tell me, you need to be better at this. You need to be better at this. Or like, he'll always tell me, you're not better than me. Like, I'm better than you at everything. And I'm like, man, like, I'm not going to let him get better than me. Like, no matter how good he gets, I'm going to be ahead of him. And then my dad, he's taught me, because I watched a lot of his games. I enjoy watching him coach. I enjoy watching his team play. And I just think him impacting me he's just been telling me like hustle, and the only thing he'll yell at me for isn't striking out, because everybody strikes out, everybody makes errors, but he just wants me hustling and being going 110% every play. As long as I do that, he's happy with me.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Yeah, no, awesome. So yeah, and then definitely wanted to touch on, you know, with both of you too as well. Like, very easy for me thinking from the hitting side with things with you, but like both of you guys too are like elite defenders, and also too both blazing fast. Yeah, I'm gonna have you guys race out in the parking lot after this, just to rest my mind of who's quicker. Yeah, you're gonna get warmed up. But no, yeah, definitely kind of along with that. I mean, obviously there's a lot of other parts of the game, and like taking pride in a lot of other areas of the game as well. So I kind of was gonna have you guys open that up, you know, because again, I know, and it's actually funny, kind of with both you guys that was the thing, is like, Aleena, when I first met you, like elite defender, you know, could run, hitting was like. It was okay. Right? And then, you know, Paige, kind of the same thing, right? Well, like we first met, it's like, you know, hey, like, you know, again, obviously you hit at other levels, again, getting to Oregon, and again, met some resistance there, but also as well, like, again, you've like elite defender, and also can play a lot of different positions, which is a skill in itself. But then also too, like, you know, really fast and those other parts of your game. So I guess what I want to dive into, and Aleena, I'll have you go first on this one. I was going to go to Paige every time first. Is that, you know, kind of open that up about really like balancing like your training and kind of being a well-rounded player, and like why, you know, again, are the player that you are.
Yeah. So a lot of it comes from when you're practicing, you don't, like, every rep is for a reason. You want to keep it game-like. If I'm hitting in a cage, like there's a runner at third and I'm scoring that run. Like, you always want to practice for a purpose. And if I'm at home and I'm defending, like, everything, I don't want to mess up. Like, I want, if I mess up at home practicing, then what am I going to do in a game? So a lot of it is just at home, keeping everything 100% a game mentality.
Love that. How about you, Paige?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched Aleena play. Like, I remember her coming to Marty's 18U practice, and like, you know, when someone has like raw talent, like I like always like remember you. And so like I think that's what's cool. Like, we're very similar. Like, I feel the same way. Like, never really taking that rep off. Like, you gotta be locked in and ready to go at all times. And I think like we're similar in that way, because like when I'm on that field or in the batter's box or in the cage, like I'm going all out right here. I'm not gonna make myself go any less or more. Like, I just want to, like, I'm going to win this moment kind of thing. And so, yeah, I'd say very similar to her.
Yeah. No, and I would say the same thing to Aleena. Thank God you're not driving yet, you know, or at least to my knowledge. But with that, Paige, you know, like one thing I'll say again along with it is, I think one thing that I really would talk to a lot of people about when I was a Division I baseball player is like, yo, like, and especially because I played in the NAIA afterwards, which is, again, you guys will probably never have to ever even know more about that league. But along with it, like when I played in the NAIA, like, you know, my NAIA team would have smashed my Division I team, right? But it was a mid-major and all these other things going on. But, and also we were really good. There's a lot of really talented players in the NAIA. But what I would always say is the difference between the different levels is, like, to be a Division I athlete, there's a lot more that comes with it. It's not just talent, right? Like, and for example, you know, I was gonna say for Paige, for example, like, you've never been late, ever. Like, again, beforehand, like, again, night before, like, even for this, like, today, you're like, hey, like, blah, 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 what time are you thinking? I'm here, like, again, always communicating, like, all those other things. And it's like, all of that is, like, mentality-wise of things that go in. And I took that same mindset. And, again, to play at that level, again, like, and Paige, I was going to have you talk on that, is there's a lot of athletes that are taking, like, smaller majors. And both of you, like, education's really important. And, like, you could have easily taken you know, an easier major, right?
Yeah.
Like, you've taken... you know, some, I was going to have you kind of open up on that, because again, a lot of athletes choose to go that route because it is really hard with everything, the demand that you have on the field and all those things, especially when you're playing at a bigger school, you know, and again, you know, all the workouts and where you got to be here and there. And then, like, you know, it's really tight schedules. And then also too, because Division I, you have clocks. And so you have to, you know, like, okay, hey, I only have this amount of time. So you guys are like on the go and need to be like on point with going through things. But why don't you kind of like open that up? One, about why you, pick the major that you did, and then two, on top of that as well, where do you think that, you know, kind of talking some of those like softer skills, I guess I would say, with it that it takes to play at that level?
Yeah. So I'm a human physiology major, which is very rare in the softball program.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can listen to a lot of the girls who start as a human phys major, and then as they go,
Yeah.
they slowly start to become a psych major. But
Yeah. Yeah.
no, yeah, I've definitely picked one of like the hardest majors at Oregon, but it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I think that's what like keeps me going. Like I'm passionate about human phys because I tore my ACL. Like I want to know what I can do to help other athletes like me get through those injuries and like mentally and physically. So like I'm very passionate about that. So I'm going to continue doing that because it's like something I love and want to do. But it definitely takes a lot of sacrifice. It's a lot of extra communication, extra work, extra hours. Like it's frustrating sometimes seeing my roommates be able to like just chill on the couch watching TV, and I'm like studying chem and like doing all this. Like I had to take a chem class this summer too, just so I can be on time with everything. It's hard to take certain classes during season, so it's definitely a grind, but it's like I've always been in that grind mentality, so I feel like it's like I kind of love it in a way. But like I said, you have to have the skills to be able to work on that time management and communication. Like if I wasn't well at those skills, then I wouldn't be able to perform in softball and school. Like I have to be able to tell my coaches like, hey, like this is what I have going on. I need to go to weights this time because I can't make it at this time, kind of thing. Like it's a struggle, but it's definitely, it's worth it when you have like a very big passion about it. And I think that's what you got to keep going with. Like just because it's hard, like if you're passionate about it, like you got to go for it, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I also wanted to circle back on some of those like, softer skills, kind of the second part of that question as well, is like, I think a lot of things that people miss there, it's like they think it's just like, oh, for me to play Division I, I have to have this level of talent. And it's like, yeah, like that's obviously you need to be good. But also too, there's a lot of players that are really good that, don't make it at that level for a lot of other reasons. Again, like when it comes to schooling or the discipline it takes and, all those other things. So why don't you kind of talk about like, what do you think it like takes to play at that level of like, the difference in skill, not just that skill of like talent of playing softball, but the other things as well.
Like compared from like high school to?
Yeah, I would say, or like, again, just other, like, again, like very different from like different levels of play, right? Like there's a whole bunch of girls that play junior college, like, okay. There's a whole bunch of girls that play, NAI, softball. There's less programs like that across the nation, D2, D3, and also too, some that are, again, I know that, for example, for me, there's a lot of baseball players that were better than me that just stopped playing, because they, again, either didn't have the grades to do X, Y, and Z, or again, kept getting into trouble. We talked about that. Me and you talked about that the other day, is like, hey, like I play for Oregon, right? Like, again, if a girl at some no-name junior college gets a DUI, it's not a big deal. Like me as an Oregon player, like, like it's a big deal, for me. Like there is a standard of what this looks like. There is a standard for all these other things. And I think a lot of people don't really think about that, what that takes is like character to kind of play at that level as well. So why don't you kind of like open up some of that of like what you think it really takes to play for your guys at that level?
I think like it takes a hard focus and kind of a sense of pride. Like I know I'm an athlete at Oregon, so like the kind of that pride of it, like I need to be doing my best, like outside of softball, during softball, in the community. Like I see it, like people see me, like I'm wearing the uniform of Oregon across my chest. Like I want people to know that like I'm being well taken care of and well behaved around everybody. Like I don't want people to think that I'm doing all this crazy stuff. So I think it's a hard focus because there's a lot of stuff going on around you that you could get very distracted by. So I think what makes like what the difference is between the two, like different levels of play, is like that focus. Like it's a sharper focus that you kind of really have to really take deeper focus in, because like if you don't, then that's when you start to slowly like disappear from that. And that's when you don't see people succeed in that level. Yeah.
And then also I was going to have you, something that Aleena hasn't had to deal with though, as well as, you're at home. When you're in high school, you're at home, all those other things happen, and then all of a sudden you move away from home, right? And some of that structure and some of that stuff was coming from, parents are getting you here, they're doing X, Y, and Z, or, again, there's just a lot of structure because, you just haven't been on your own at all yet. And a lot of people get to colleges and the parties, and there's boys, and there's this, and there's that, right? And all those things happening. How have you, kind of, especially being at Oregon that same way, like there's football games, and there's like, you guys have a lot of sports that are, really good in a lot of things. How have you, again, the same way too, is not get distracted by, and I know you were kind of talking about focus there, that's what made me think of it, but have you navigated kind of through there as you transitioned into college?
Yeah, I mean, like, I know what my goals are and what I want to accomplish. So I think that's kind of the driving force and factor of it.
Yeah.
So I think that's what helps my focus so like become so strong. And then there's also like other things like for me, like you'll find out like there's different ways you want to write like your schedule and things. Like I have a week schedule. I even do it back home now. Like I write down like Monday through Sunday, and I write down everything I want to get accomplished in each day. And like that's what I need to do. And like I do that and I love it and it works for me. So I think it's like finding out like what kind of things you need to do. Like, oh, like I'll write down maybe there's a football game I'll have time for. Like maybe have different color pens kind of thing. But yeah, it's like finding out what like works for you and like, I don't know, like you know what your goals are. So it's like keeping that focus to that. And then maybe like it's always like you want to have fun too. Like you go to college to work hard and do that, but like have some fun too. So like go to that football game. I remember my biggest regret was not going to a Luke Combs concert with my teammates. It was during fall. I was like, man, I should have went. And I was like, I have a chem test tomorrow. But like, I mean, it's like figuring out like what, like it's also you want to be good emotionally too, you know? So yeah, that's what I would say.
Balance everything. Yeah, no, I was gonna. It's funny because what I thought of when you talked about the schedule is I remember when you started first training here, we got an email with your schedule written out of what days you had available and when we could fit you in and like all those things, and like I knew your schedule of what that was, and so it's funny because when you said that I was like, no, I literally like
that wasn't even my like weekly one either. That was just like a month one I put out for you guys.
Like let me just throw a schedule together, show you when I'm available. No, I thought that was kind of cool there as well. No, and then also, Aleena, I wanted to bring this up because even though your little brother is probably a pain in the butt for you, I think you're a really good older sister. Like, for example, if I want a video of your brother, I text you.
Yeah.
Because you have a video of like every one of his at-bats and all of his things. And again, like you, again, go to a lot of his games. Like you don't need to be there. And again, that's not a knock on my sister. She missed some of my baseball games. All right. I'm now that I've seen you as older sister, I'm like, hey, you should have been to everyone. But yeah, why don't you kind of open that up as well? I know you guys are competitive, but also too, you guys have a really good relationship.
Yeah.
So kind of, why don't you open that up?
Well, every opportunity I have to go watch him play, even if I need to wake up at 5:30 in the morning to go watch him, I'm going. It's just watching him play. I see him, especially I love watching him catch. It's like he's almost in his own world. Like
he's always in his own world.
Like, oh yeah, for sure. He's always, but catching, like, I don't know how to explain. He's just does things that you don't see other catchers doing. Like he'll on his own make up pick plays, and the way his mind works is just crazy. So I also learn a lot from him. I learned many lessons and how to get better mindset from my brother, and we just always competing, and the way off the field, me and him always laugh together. Like we get in trouble for being too loud because we can't stop laughing.
For sure.
We're just super close.
Yeah, no, that's funny. No, and obviously too, I've trained both of you guys together, and I was the same thing. It's like when you guys are together, sometimes I'm like, all right, when it's just you, it's like when both of you guys are together, I'm like, all right, I gotta dial you guys back in.
It's hard to get him to be serious.
Yeah, 100%. No, but I also too, along with that, it's funny because usually my best players are one or the other, right? Either they're really serious and like locked in, like Paige, like very structured and those things, and like, okay, I get all these things done, or they're completely the opposite way and they're like really goofy and they're all over the place and like you can't get them to be serious and they don't take anything seriously. And I think on like, you know, kind of both of those, I think what really works for, you know, like that is like obviously your brother knows how to turn it on and he can get passionate, all those other things as well. Don't want to knock, you know, misrepresent that. But also too, I think he does a good job of not taking things personal and like, you know, just learning from things and making adjustments and stuff like that as well. But it's just funny because I was actually talking about that with Cody yesterday. Was like usually my best players are like one way or another. Either they're super goofy and like they're, you know, just lackadaisical, like kind of off the field or in between, you know, at bats, or that, you know, they're smiling during the game and it's all those, and or they're like super serious and like, you know, locked in. Yeah. So last question and we'll wrap up with you guys and get some things going. But yeah. So my last question for both you guys as well is that if let's go right now in your guys' head, what is your like ultimate like goal right now? Like what is in your head, like, okay, this is my big one. This is what I'm chasing down. This is the thing, is like again, it might be 10 years out, it might be 3 years out, whatever that is. Why don't you guys kind of open it up? Aleena, you're younger, so you get to go first on this one too. Why don't you say your ultimate goal?
My ultimate goal, and it's been like that for a while, so everything I work towards is to be an Olympian. I want to not only be an Olympian, but win a gold medal. Like, I want to win at that level. So everything I do day to day is to reach that goal.
Love it. All right, Paige. You're up.
Yeah, for me, I mean, like I said, I'm like very present right now, like
Yeah.
that mindfulness. So like for me, like I want to be an All-American this year.
Yeah.
Like I got the defense and I'm working on the offense, and I think like I have everything it takes. So yeah, I'd say All-American, and then the next after that would be Olympian too. Like it's always the big dream. Both of us Olympians.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe you guys would be playing on the
Play
same
together.
team.
Yeah,
We'll-
USA.
we'll flash back to this podcast. I'll make some content where you guys are both playing on the same team together. It'd be awesome. Cool. No, really appreciate both of you guys sitting down. I thought it was a pretty cool opportunity to have both of you guys here, and we can talk through, and I think you guys will help a lot of. And again, another thing that Paige, you and I have talked about, and Aleena, like now you're kind of stepping into that stage as well. Is like there's so many players that are you naturally at some point, like there's just a bunch of players that start looking up to you, and to you it feels like, oh, it's just another day, right? It's just like that, and all of a sudden now, again, like they start wanting your autograph, and they want to talk to you, after the game, and they want to, do X, Y, and Z, and then they want, they especially, Aleena, you're about to get to that place of, you sign with a team, and then okay, now everybody knows that you're the girl that is signed with X, whoever, and also now they want advice. They want, they want to know, and they're watching how you work, and they do those things, and just like you did with everybody else, or just like you're gonna do when you're hitting with Paige, or where that is, and like taking in like their advice, and so I think it's cool that you guys can kind of sit back and share that with everybody, and I think it'll be some cool things there as well. So, but until next time, Farm System out.